but I will report, and it'll be fine. This is good part of the theme of BVW, which is being prepared and being ready for backups and testing things. We tested this and did not identify this problem, and we will resolve it in the future. So anyway, we have a backup, and the backup is recording to the computer and then uploading that, and that will be fine. So I thank you again for your patience with all this. Okay, so with all of that, we've got 3 teams this afternoon. And so the plan is to go through those teams, very much like we have been doing. It's like interim. I'll be playing the worlds, and Mo is here and Christian's here to sort of give feedback. We'll talk through that. You're taking notes. You are doing the feedback work for the team. So the 2 teams who aren't presenting, your job is to observe and then work on that feedback sheet. And so we're still completing that loop. And like I mentioned this morning, the part of the goal of this is the practice of this, like the experience of watching, observing, and thinking, and how to provide useful feedback. And the other thing is there's a practical reality for all this as well, which is when we get to the end of the semester, we'll be talking much more about Festival, and there's an opportunity to submit any world from any round to Festival, and there might be changes you want to make, modifications you want to pursue, and coming back to this feedback and reminding you of where it was and what next steps might be is something that you can do. So there's sort of room to make changes. That said, we are ending round 1 and we're starting round 2 today as well. So we're going to be moving on to exciting new things. And this after this session, I'll be talking through assignment 2 and some other things. So we can sort of get into that, especially if you guys have questions. So with all of that, any questions about what we're doing and where we're going with this right now? All right, so to that end, I think we're ready to get started. I think first team up is going to be team 4. So I'm going to get things ready. So if team 4 would like to sort of get your video going, get ready, I'm going to go ahead and get my thing ready to go here. Close this. Close this. All right, team 4 final. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Looks good. And get this going. All right. Mysterious portal. Portals are never good for babies. Almond potions. Whoa, wait, they went through the portal. Huh. All right, we're going to be eating babies today. Enter the portal and save him. Nice and clear. Nice and creepy. All right, let's do this. The other world. Need to find Sammy. Whoa. Okay. With the mouse, WASD. Got these loading bottles. I guess these are potions. Baby crying somewhere. These glowing things. I want to collect them, but it doesn't seem like I can do that. The world has me pointing in this direction, so I can go over here first. Door. All right. Get him out. Mom is certainly sleeping in an interesting way, adding to her creepiness. So there's a baby over here. Space. I think to calm him down. I saw a teddy bear over here. It feels like space. All right, it's getting close. Here we go. Whoa! Sammy jumped to my back. All right, let's do it. We gotta go. Come on, Sammy. All right, getting out. All right. Ooh, all right. We're gonna get caught. Oh, potions and babies. Sammy's certainly an adventurous little baby. Try to defeat her. I'm really curious what defeating her is going to be. Speed? Oh, yeah, this is where the potions come into play. I can go back this way. I saw Mom over there. I do not want to get too close. Oh, whoa, whoa. No, this is not good. I think we're doing a bad job hiding. Sammy, go to center. There we go. Whoa, nice. I was hoping I'd be able to do that, and it was very satisfying to be able to do that. Okay, all right, we're gonna do this again. Now the question is, where are we going? So we can stun Mom and run away, but I don't. Oh. Okay. If I restart, we'll see where we go. All the way to the beginning. Okay, we'll see if we can go through this.
That was pretty close for the first attempt.
I feel like I was close. All right, so we're gonna go through here. You know what we need to do? We need to grab a teddy bear. See if we can bypass. All right, got that. I'm gonna speed run these first few parts. I'm gonna leave. All right. Ooh, we can, like, it's nice. I can see Mom there. I went through there first, but I can go back this way. There's potions over here. Try to be a little stealthier about this. Mom went that way.
Sammy, where are
Here. Done. I go back this way. Where's Mom going? Okay, don't want to collect potions while I'm full. Mommy's really creepy. My mom's the red. Alright, spell's ready. What?
Yeah, she catches you before you press the spell. Like there's an order, so it was still pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to make sure that she cannot like touch you when you cast the spell.
So if she touches me, I die.
Yeah.
And it's instant death. Okay. All right, we'll give it one more try.
It's easier if you like go to the back and cast the spell.
All right, we're gonna be a little sneakier. We're gonna be a little less aggressive.
Yeah, try to attempt her on the back. In that case, she won't see you.
Teddy bear. Go this way.
Sammy, where are you?
Where you going? I have a good sense of the range of this, so it's really hard for me to judge how close is too close. I don't have a good sense of the Mom's range either, so she's right there. Do that. Let's run. Discriminate. Yay! Portal. Hooray! great.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right. So, I mean, thinking back to interim, you guys had this tone and the setup of mom being not a friendly mom, but a really creepy mom. I think one of the things that we gave you feedback on was clarifying like the idea of mom and, you know, basically picking a direction. Is this serious? And is this like a serious issue, or is this, you know, spookier? I think you definitely went into the like, you know, magical, spooky, and like the choice of like putting mom in quotes and like the baby discovering, you know, through a portal. Like portals are weird, and it sets up we're definitely in this magical space, but I think helped a lot, and it helped clarify what we're doing, just in the sense of like how I wanted to think about this, and it wasn't so much, you know, a baby, like my baby brother and things like that. We were sort of characters in this magical world, and like the baby's on my back, of course. Like that's, you know, what we're gonna do. We're gonna find portals and get out of here. So I like the fact that you sort of like got more specific about your tone and your direction, and sort of used that really well. The story and the setup, like it's weird and it's creepy. I think it works, especially the mom's voice and sort of the sound effects really reinforced a lot of that stuff in ways that was very effective. There was, you know, thinking through this, there was some interesting moments, like the idea of portals, like some things are told through the cutscene and I don't really get to feel them in the world. And I was a little bit like having to like adapt and understand. And so like just the transitions between cutscene and what the cutscene is telling me and what the world is telling me, I had to do a little adaptation around like, okay, what am I really doing at the moment? And part of that was, you know, the first thing I'm supposed to do is like find Sammy, and I didn't know, like I guessed maybe a door is the right way to go, but some of the visual language of what is my destination, what is a portal, I could see some iteration there would be helpful, particularly at the beginning. You throw me into a room and there are these really attractive glowing bottles of potion, but I'm not doing that yet. Like I'm not at the potion part. So there's just a little bit of clarity of where am I in this world and what am I doing at the moment that could be helpful. But the overall pace of this, I really like that we start sort of slow, which like my job is just to go somewhere, and then I'm in a room and the mom is asleep. I see her, she's a presence, and my Sammy becomes a presence, and I do something that isn't like, it's a little bit lower stakes, like lower energy, just like getting me used to things. And then we get into the mom is now a threat. So the progress and the pacing felt really strong. I think the best moment for me was when I filled up the potion meter and I hit spacebar and I sort of zapped the mom, because the world didn't tell me that's what would happen. And I think this is a little bit where the clarity of exactly what I'm going to be doing would be a little helpful. But because you gave me a meter, because you sort of set up that the Sammy was drinking potions and could do stuff with that, I was hopeful that doing that would result in a way to sort of attack mom rather than just satisfying Sammy being thirsty. And it paid off. Like you had a really nice effect, and it was really clear of what happened there. So it was a moment of expectation, and then the world delivered, and that was really nice. So I think that's like, I think a lot of the strengths of this world is just getting the world to be understandable and me into that moment and knowing what to do. I also like the fact that I think I was able to get better at the sequence with the mom. My first reaction was I was struggling with some of the signals you were sending, like, can mom see me? What does it mean for her to get too close? What does it mean for me to stun her? What does it mean to hide? Like those are, I think there was a lack of clarity in that caused me confusion at the beginning. And as I iterated, I was able to pick that up because I was getting a feel for the way the world worked, which was nice in the sense that I got better at it. I think on iteration, there are ways you could get me to know that a little bit better, a a little bit faster. Like, what is the mom's range? The fact that she can kill me instantaneously, like came out of nowhere. And I never really got good clarity on that. But I was able to work with the pieces and pull together. And I think overall, like just strong tone and strong progression through the whole story. Mo?
Yeah, so I have something I want to add on.
Oh, sure.
So like you mentioned like for the first part, like you're not sure like the direction, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like the problem that the TA points out yesterday as well. And then we actually like worked on a little bit on that. So you can see like when you get in that world, like when the text pop up say entering the other world, and then you get to the room, and then you can see like there's a live stream of like it's gradually disappear. That's actually like the portal disappearing, like to show that you're in the other world. And then also in terms of like the direction of baby, if you pay attention, you can actually like when you get closer to the door, like the volume is getting louder and louder. So yeah, that's kind of a hint. And
actually,
yeah, the portion is kind of misleading. I do agree on that.
The audio for the baby, I wasn't sure. I thought it might be guiding me. It's nice to have multiple signals. So if one is missed, the other one can back you up. But I liked the fact that the audio did pull me. My experience, I had doubt in my mind, but at the same time, I got to the door and got through it, and I was successful in that process.
Yeah. And also for like the mom's vision, like you mentioned that it was not very clear how it works, right? Yeah, because actually, like in our team, we have like we're not sure about that as well, because like in our like when we program it, like there's actually like you can see the mom's like there's an angle of the vision, but we did not actually put it in game because we may think that it would be a little bit weird, like because we want to make it like more realistic. So like they should not be like the viewing angle, those stuff. That's why we didn't put it. But yeah, that's a good advice.
And this is a thing that you'll encounter in interactive experiences over and over again, which is the balance between the reality of the world, like what is the fantasy of the world, and how do you reinforce that, and bringing the guest in and sort of doing things to help them achieve better clarity and better understanding. Exactly. And this is where we see, the tension in games between having absolutely no UI and games that have like aggressive UI. And it's part of this is just through playtesting and observation of like understanding where you want to find that balance. Mo, you got some thoughts?
Yeah. Just to reiterate, the feedback incorporation from last week to this week is really good. It feels like we're firmly in kind of a fantastical horror space here, and I think those are all really good changes. Even the reduced red on the splash screen, it just shows more restraint there in your artistic design. And I love the smile on the mom's face in the splash screen. It's really creepy. I think the 2D art style and the 3D art style could work well together, but there was a bit of disconnect in terms of the palette and the tone across the two. The 2D one felt like out of the world. It was really bright and like friendly looking. So, see if you can get that to be a little more cohesive. I was kind of confused about the mechanic the whole time. I thought we were picking up baby bottles and keeping Sammy content with baby bottles. I didn't realize that was working towards the spell. And it wasn't until the third time that Dave played through it that I saw the text on the screen, like ready to cast spell, because it just felt like it was not connected to the meter bars that you had in the upper left-hand corner. And I think you probably could have incorporated that mechanic into the world better just through animation or making it more part of that UI feedback rather than just using text. But I think you guys were touching upon that. Christian?
I want to echo what Mo said. Great iteration on feedback for sound as well. I think you've incorporated just about all of the items that we talked about during the feedback session last week. I liked the underlying drone. It added to the uneasiness. The music worked well together to add to that strange atmosphere. One of the items that I think took me out of the experience was the positive reinforcement sound of collecting the spell bottles. It sounded like a broken string on an instrument, which technically works as a horror sound, especially if you're dealing with this particular genre. The issue is, as a musician, for me personally, hearing a broken string is actually a negative reinforcement sound. That means either I did something wrong or I can't finish my performance. So having that sound as your collection sound made it a little bit unclear about the positive or negativeness of collecting those bottles. So be careful with sound selection in that aspect. Beyond that, the spell casting was a very satisfying sound. It was satisfying through Zoom, so I'm assuming it was even more satisfying in person, Dave. But yeah, great iteration, great feedback, and I think chat will agree that very good crafting of a strange, uneasy atmosphere.
Yeah, I think you guys did a good job of knowing what the world's about, having an idea of like the tone and the atmosphere you wanted to achieve, and made strong choices to get there. There's obviously like spots where I'm sure as a team, like there's more animation you could do. There's more other little pieces, but in terms of especially getting me, the guest, to go through it, I think you had just enough in the right places to convey that. So really good work. All right. That was team 4. Moving on to team 6. So let me share screen here. Bump up one. Team 6. Final build. Let's do this. Love definitely some interesting stylization. These eyeballs are setting me up in an interesting way. The glowing mushrooms. Curious where we're going. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and look at how to play just to get myself ready. It's available. Whew. All right, keyboard. Down accumulates energy, and when the player releases this key, the plane is launched. Ooh, paper airplanes. Left and right key on the keyboard control the angle of view. All right. Let's make it happen. One day, Catgirl is dating Catboy, me. Crazy scissors to keep cutting every paper in front of him. Catgirl is getting really afraid of scissors. At this moment, a paper plane catches their eyes. You then come up with an idea by making paper planes to keep Catgirl from the crazy scissors. All right, crazy scissors. Whoa. Help me, save me from the scissors. Goes after any paper. The controls didn't seem to be working. I'm gonna try that again. What should I be
Yeah,
doing?
so those are actually, I don't know what build this is actually.
Is it the right
It's
build?
like a package. I don't know. We have a video as a backup, so this is definitely the wrong build. We did it as like a single EXE.
So if there's what should I be looking for in terms of the submitted build? I'm in team 6, final build.
Shouldn't be a folder inside final. It's just directly in final. It should just be called cut it out.
So we can, this is what I synced to.
Totally fine if not. We have a video that I will share in the chat for you to play otherwise.
All right, let me. Just do a quick check. I'm over on Perforce. All right. sort of copying files right now. Heads up.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll put this in, but I have my fingers crossed. It's in chat if it doesn't work.
All right. So pulled that. All right. So I've got cut it out and better cut it out.
No, don't use better, cut it out. It's not better.
All right, let me share my screen and see if we can get this to go. All right, I'm gonna start. Whoa. Okay. Sort of like, I love this animation. The text is a little hard to read, but I read it before, so I know what we're doing. Whoa. Okay. She's crying an awful lot. Pull back the arrows. Work. That's kind of exciting. Let's go this way. Okay, there. Whoa. There's not too much to help. All right, we're gonna try this again. All right, let's try it again. Click start. All right, here she comes. But I want to just sort of send airplanes around. It's kind of hard to tell what they do. I'm watching for the scissors to like have a reaction. Okay, there we go. Scissors goes that direction. It does not really last long. One more time. Those tears are just everywhere.
You really scaled up the difficulty.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna rapidly go this way. Send an airplane all the way to the side. Is that doing any good? Whoa, what happened to that airplane? Come on. Here we go. Whew. Nothing. Should I go to the video? Or is there
Yeah, why
advice
don't we
you
do
can-
that? It makes more sense.
Is there advice on
If
like
you
what I
want
should
to
do?
try the rock, okay?
Well, I think us guiding you is going to be like, I don't know. It's up to you, whatever you think. If you want us to try to guide you, we can, but.
I mean, I guess is there any advice you want to give me if I try
So-
one more time?
Yeah, basically, it's real aerodynamics guiding the plane. So there is randomness involved. So it's not like you're doing anything necessarily wrong at times. So you were doing the right thing. You had the right instincts. And I think if you turn around behind you, there are easier things to hit that are closer, and you don't have to practice as much.
Is there? Wait, you said easier things to hit. Am I trying
Yeah,
to
so
hit
the
things?
planes, you are trying to hit things. You were falling short just barely, I think, in the times that you did. But behind you, I think things are a little bit closer, and it will be easier to do.
I'm gonna try to hit things.
But you got to be fast because the scissor is coming.
What does it mean to hit something? I don't.
It
know.
looks weird. It looks like things aren't registering hits, which happened on my computer, but didn't happen on everyone else's. So I had the same problem. We may just want to put the video.
All right, we'll give it one more try. Whew. All right. Go to that. Here's the demo. All right, let's watch this.
You can skip ahead 30 seconds. This is exposition.
Like the airplane. Seeing it. Felt that. Ooh, there. Yeah, the feedback of the thing hitting. Really helpful. All right. All right, let me stop share. So, I mean, thinking back to interim, like, you guys made a lot of interesting changes. So at interim, we were working with a drawing pad and there were scissors, and we had this character who was sort of on paper, but we were throwing like Post-its out, and you had ideas around drawing stuff. And you made a really big shift. I think it's a really clever one, which is the idea of paper airplanes. You had the idea you wanted to like sort of throw paper onto things, and I like the twist of, okay, if you're gonna throw paper, how do you do that? And paper airplanes are a great like metaphor to get me to understand that. It's like paper airplanes are a way to throw paper, and that fits into this idea of how do you give me a tool to work with the world. You did some other good stuff, like you established a little bit better like who this other character is and who I am and why I need to sort of do something. So you made the cat girl a character out of paper and like made that clear in the beginning. And then the whole world sort of like has this style to it, which is I really like. It's sort of a weird, I don't know any way how to describe the style, but just sort of the sound effects and the aesthetics definitely have a feel to it that makes it feel unique, and I really like that. Now when it comes to the understanding the gameplay is where I was struggling, and I think this is where iteration is, and I think for me the challenge here is the instructions you give me as the guest, and then what the world wants me to do, and there is some missing pieces here, which was like my understanding was my job was to throw paper, and I knew that would sort of lead the scissors, but the real thing I need to do is I need to basically hit objects in the world with a paper airplane, and those will become targets that the scissors will follow, and that will keep the scissors away. And then I need to go beyond just sort of keep the scissors away. I need to escalate to defeat the scissors. I need to use that. I think that making that leap for me as the guest of throwing paper to hitting things with paper to lure the scissors is where I would sort of focus iteration if you went back and sort of iterated things. And it's just part of the reality is the complicated verbs this world has is like sometimes it's easy to say some things, but getting the guest to understand how that idea translates into actions in the world is I think where some of the struggle is. And one thing it looks like I was missing was possibly a technical problem, which is that moment of the airplane hitting a target and that target transforming and the scissors going to that target is a huge moment. That is a really, really critical moment. And I think one of the things we saw was what happens if the guest never gets that? And this is a thing to consider about when you're looking at worlds and thinking about progression and pace. There's one part which is interest curve, and it's like how engaged is the guest, and like what is happening, and why is that exciting, and or like why is that letting us rest? But there's another thing to be thinking about, which is what does the guest know and understand, and that progression of understanding. Your world depends upon that really, really strong moment of the airplane hits a target, it transforms, and then the scissors are like, oh yeah, look at that paper. Let me go get it. And this is a place where I think one of the things I would recommend is on like a future technique is don't leave that to chance. Like, is there a way to engineer that moment so I, the guest, know it's happening? And this is where when you see games with like in-game cutscenes and like moments, they're teaching the guest what to do. And I think I could have used that. I could have used that moment of here's how the world works and we'll sort of show it to you. And when I saw that in the video, I felt sort of the change in my head. It's like, oh, that's how things work. And now when I look at the world, it feels different to me. Like it feels like there's a world full of targets, and I've got these airplanes, and my job is to like use these targets to lead the scissors. And so it's sometimes a hard thing to get into the mind of the guest of like, how do you know sort of what connection is missing? Because as a development team, like the connection existed even before the world began. Like those things, and so seeing those blind spots can be really helpful. And like I said, when that happened in the video, it was a lovely moment. Like the sound effect was really clear. You had this sort of like visual effect of transformation, and then the scissors went after it. So I think that the pieces were in place, but getting the guest to that moment, I think is the one of the major pieces of focus. The other thing to watch for is your world. I think leaves this world feels like there isn't. I guess I don't know exactly what the strategy and the progression you want me to do is. It feels like there's a rock, and I guess one of the questions is like, if I just hit a rock with paper, does that solve the world? And this is like, if you're thinking about pace for the guest, is there a way to sort of lead up to that as opposed to just have it always available? And I think another thing to think about is just the progression of this world, going from there's a threat and we learn this, and then we build up to the next part and we get to this, and now we can do this. And so also staging the work. But man, like I think I really, really like, I just like the way this world feels and the way this world has like, an edge, so to speak, of like the visuals, but also just like the way it's approaching things. It feels like it has a nice personality, and I like the choices of paper and scissors and like being clear about that. Yeah, Mo?
Yeah, I think the world feels really violent and surreal in a good way. It's very Hunter S. Thompson, Dave, would be one way to explain it. And I think that all works really well. There were a few moments though that take me out of that kind of strong world that you've built. One was the lose sound effect. It was like a classic arcade game. And then kind of on top of that, the splash screen was really interesting, but that felt like a different aesthetic. The instruction screen didn't feel cohesive to either of those two. And even the intro animation of the text going by, that felt very, very different too. And the point here is that, as you make these decisions, how to deliver this information, you should be building towards a goal. And that visual information should help us tell the story of what the experience is. And there are opportunities to inform us of how we might solve the problems ahead of us. And I think the biggest problem that I think you guys are facing here is the spatial aspects of the world kind of feel like an afterthought. I play as this paper cutout girl, and I'm in the middle of this space, and the scissors are coming at me. There's really nowhere for me to hide. So it's not very believable that if I like just turn around and throw these airplanes that it will grab the attention of the scissors. Like we never established that relationship in a very clear way, where it's kind of like a ravenous dog attacking you, have a bone in your hand and you throw it over there. I think is a good metaphor for the mechanic that you guys are going for. But we never had that like moment of attention of like, what are the scissors after? It just feels like they're always after the girl to cut her up. And I think the randomness of the aerodynamics of the airplane throw may not be the right choice. It's cool, but overall, think about the work you're doing, the cost of the implementation of the work you're doing, things like the tears coming out of her eyes, visually really cool, not essential for the experience, right? The aerodynamics of the airplane, visually really cool and a good tech demo, but maybe not essential for the experience of and the mechanics of what we're trying to accomplish. And having more predictability in the path of the airplane might have helped, certainly with the potential of mastery towards this game. It's definitely a wild world you've built, so I really commend you for taking a lot of risks. But I think you have to find a way to like hone all these ideas in towards one cohesive experience. Christian.
Pretty much echoing Mo here. You have a lot going on, a lot of different worlds that are happening in terms of style and content. And that is happening not just visually and aesthetically, but also with sound. You're mixing arcade with real scissors, with a tremolo strings, with a almost a comedic pop. There's a lot of picking and choosing here and there, sound aesthetic. And while it does add to the really wacky nature of your world that you've created, it doesn't do much to help with understandability. And I think that's ultimately what guests will struggle with this game, because they're trying to figure out what goes with what, right? And sound should really help narrow that down. The flying sound effect of the paper airplane, was I think the physics overall is what got you there, because I think you mentioned the plane has physics there, and so the low-ish rumble of that plane coupled with the tremolo of the strings, which makes sense for tension, but if it's happening consistently, you don't really get the sense of, okay, maybe I have some element of safety, right? And so somehow crafting that ability of, okay, the plane hits the rock or the tree or whatever, turns it into paper, and then that should change your element of safety, because at least for that particular moment, the scissors are going off into a different direction. They're not going to try to attack. And so cohesion, I think, cohesion and a sense of overall direction is something that would be, it's just asking for it. And it's difficult because of the world that you've created and the rules that you've given to the world. It's weird. And when you're dealing with weird, it's even more important to make sure that you don't bank on it being weird as your quirk, right? You have to figure out a way to make everything work together, because ultimately you want to make your guest understand what's happening. And I'm very curious to hear, Jack, about your design decisions tonight, if you're able to attend.
And to sort of like pick up on Christian, the idea of weird, we'll talk about weird in this class. And one of the things we might talk about is what is the weirdest thing in your world? And it's good to ask that question, because what weird usually means is a lack of clarity. It's an ingredient in confusion. And weird doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't have it, but you should be able to explain it and resolve it. And so getting things that are, intentionally out of step with the world can help bring interest and like shift things in powerful ways, but it can also make the guest confused and pull them away from being in the world. I think, the world here, one of the things, my main reaction is I want more. I want this world to come to life, and I want to go deeper into it. So I think a lot of the aesthetics are working really well. And I think especially my reaction is, as a guest, the weird of this world to me is mainly how paper airplanes sort of transform targets into things that lure the scissors. like how that the world explains that, how I understand that is where there's a lot of leaps. And so how do you get the guest over those hurdles of places where they're potentially weird and possibly too weird is definitely a place for iteration and for like watching guest testing and things like that. One thing I want to commend you guys on is you have a video that shows stuff that I wasn't able to get to. And so really good work in having that video as a backup that helps me and everyone else sort of see where things are going. This will become more important in the next round as we get into worlds where what the guest does may not be what you built. And so how do you have ways to sort of share that work? And videos are a great way to do that because they're really predictable. They go from beginning to end in one way. But yeah, I think great work in pushing this world in an interesting direction. I think responding to feedback at interim and getting it to a place where I think there's room for iteration on especially the interest curve and like how do you get the guests into it. But I think you resolved a lot of these hard decisions at interim in ways that brought this world to a much more cohesive place. So great work.
Thanks so much.
All right. Team 8, last team of the day. So let me get that stuff ready. Drop that. Get it switched over. And I'm going to share screen. This. And let's get it going. Save doggo. All right, E to interact, WASI for movement. I'm gonna play. Government raided my lab, trying to find the secret for a time machine. I'm gonna click down here. E, I'm gonna do E, there we go. Caught, got saved, completed the machine from papers I had salvaged, all the sacrifice. Ooh. Oh. I feel for you. Look like you've had a rough time. I'm gonna fix this. We have the power. I'm not able to see. Oh, we'll do it. Let's do it. Let's make things right. Ooh, look at that. I wonder which way I should go. Maybe we should follow the glowing lines to this mysterious chamber. And what nice time machine thing effect. We got a meter here. I think the soonest meter is until the bad guy comes. So we'll do that. I can move around. But knife on here. Pick this up. I wonder if we run out of time. Go through. Left click the floor. Go. Pick up items. Oh my. Wait. What am I doing now? Okay. We'll do this again. I completely stop paying attention to the meter once the things are going. Okay, we're back here. All right, get this. Run over here. Put that in. Nope, not that one. This one in. Yes, get in. Oh, I see. There's a turn over here. Get that. Over here. Get in through here. Anywhere. Come on, follow me. Where are we going? All right, you're gonna go here. Get on that. You're gonna grab that. All right, follow me. Right click, whistle. Come on. This. Go through here. All right. Oh man. So pick this up. This drawing's here. Cooper's solvent. Oh wait, we dissolve. We're gonna, I think, dissolve the door. Let's do that. What does that mean, though? Only 2 potions are. How are potions telling the truth? Oh well, there we go. We're back at the beginning. All right. This one? Yeah, through here. Come on. Get that. Over here. Open that. Go through here. You go over here. Grab that. Open that. And then only 2 potions are telling the truth.
ANC, ANC.
I can't get out of it. What are you doing? Go through here. Alright. What now? Can you do this? Can you go through here? Yes. I can go over here. Can you get this? Yes. Through here. Run! 5 years ago, raided my lab, trying to find the secret time machine. This time a guy got out. Let's go for a walk. Let's go. Yay! Whew. All right. Wow. Man, a lot of changes from interim. I mean, like the basic structure and tone of this, I think, is still in place. But a big question mark was, what were you actually going to do in this world? Because when we saw it interim, you kind of had the story set up, and there was some confusion about time machine and like what's happening and like cutscenes setting things up. But kind of a big unanswered one was like, what will we actually do? Because you had a little bit of like a scale concept of puzzles. And this now answers that in a big way. And you do this kind of crazy thing, which is you set up the enemy with a meter who's coming to get me, and it's a timer, and I have to do all these little puzzles and progress to get through. And as sort of watched and went through this, one thing I definitely felt was the frantic nature of this. Like, there is a bad guy coming, and he's coming fast, and I've got to keep moving. I got to keep going fast. And what did that was less the meter and more the fact that really quickly, really early on, I died. Like, I learned that through failure. I learned that through it didn't work, and I had to do it again. And I sort of a piece I appreciated was you kind of used your time machine story as an excuse for retrying. So it made it feel more intentional and made it feel like my job here isn't to get it right the first time. My job is to learn, which I appreciate. And it's a hard thing to do. Like, failure in a game is definitely a technique for getting the guests to know things. But it's hard to walk that line between frustration and the guest feeling like it shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't be frustrated. And the world being like, don't worry, like this is expected. You should be doing it this way. And the time machine helped with that. At the same time, like the way I was failing was kind of surprising every time. And so I think there's room to like iterate that a little bit, but I did appreciate that loop. And I think as you saw, it worked for me. One thing that happened consistently was I saw the meter at the beginning and I never saw it again. It completely disappeared from my vision from every consecutive playthrough because the world was very much focused on what I had to do. And all I knew is I had to go fast, but I never knew how much time I had. Every now and then I glanced at it in between and it always felt like I had a lot of time, but because of the way I was sort of learning and failing, all I really learned was I don't have much time and I have to go as fast as possible regardless. And it might be a thing to consider of like, how do you get the information to the guest when they need it and how they need it? And the how in this case is very much around like where my eyes are. Like I cannot see the whole screen at once. I can only see certain parts. And for this, the meter for where the enemy was in a fixed space, but I just never looked there because nothing else in the world wanted me to look there. And I think that would be something to like think about in iteration. It's a good thing to be considering when you're making experiences is where is your guest looking? Because just because you put something somewhere doesn't mean they're going to look there. And if it's essential to what they're doing, then you want to put it where they're looking and not just trust that they're going to look somewhere. That said, I didn't need it. Like I learned the lesson of speed, and I don't think I would have really changed my behavior too much based on speed. The closest was the interesting puzzle design of the potions and like not having to like learn a new interface, like dropping the sign, picking things up. And I could see like the more rushed I am, I'd be like, screw it, I'm just going to guess. I might change my strategy, but overall the pacing of this, my strategy was go as fast as possible. No time to think, which worked well for what the world was getting at in terms of being afraid. One thing that's really lovely, I loved how you used the dog and made that connection be meaningful. So you set up at the beginning, like he looks sort of hurt and you do a great job just establishing relationship. And then as we were playing, that work reinforces it, and being forced to use in different ways, like the go grab the key card from under the table, now stay here and weigh down this keypad so I can go in, now let's split up. Just really good use of making that relationship meaningful and reinforcing that I'm helping. I think there's an interesting question here of like, who's helping whom? And like, where is sort of this all connected? But I felt like we were a team and we were working together to go through. And I think also a thing you did really well is just the progression of steps. Nothing was ever too much. It was too much sort of in the moment when I didn't know what I was doing, but I got better at it and I could progress through it. And you did a good job pacing out the information of like, okay, you do this with the dog now, you do this, you do that. And it never, I think the only times things were overwhelming was when they mostly were intentionally overwhelming, which is that moment of time getting tight. So I think all that really came together. There's some places where, I think you guys know you could like make moments, read better. I had some spots with the controls were like a little bit challenging, like not knowing, I had to learn that E advanced the text and stuff like that, but just little usability things that would certainly enhance the experience. But overall, you got good focus on the right components to get me through and to get me to feel the right things. I'm left with some lingering questions like that. The bad guy is probably one of your weakest components. It's like we have a strong relationship with the dog and sort of like the space, like we're sort of a scientist. So there's an aspect of that. But then we have this like villain who looks kind of like Zurg from Toy Story. Like there's just sort of it clearly reads as menacing, but I don't really have a good sense of how that character connects to the story. And because of that, it's just a threat and isn't really bringing story to the space. but yeah, I was engaged throughout this and felt, legitimate relief and a sense of accomplishment when I completed it.
Yeah, that's kind of where what I was picking up on is there you have a lot of different elements of play in your world. You have a scientist who invents a time machine, and there's magic potions. And I believe at one point the government stole the plans to his time machine and he's recovered it. And then we had this kind of ghostly perpetrator that we never really get to meet or understand their motives. And I think if you could tie that all together in a better way, the world would go from good to great. And I think the puzzles, in turn, could give us more information about who's chasing us and why they're chasing us. And I thought the moment where Dave kind of said out loud, "How does a potion lie?" was a good example of that. Like, that's an opportunity. Like, did someone write a note there? I think there are ways to get your storytelling beats out through the world as it progresses. So not only are we going through this kind of intense experience, but when we think back about each beat, that we can start to build a bit bigger picture of the world around us that we're in and the story being told. And I thought the dog worked really well too. The moment where he goes to get the key card, that was great. But every time you whistle for him and he comes back to your feet, I mean, just like really visceral experience of like a dog relationship there, of like a dog coming to your feet. And I thought that was really great. And to start off to when Dave went into the time machine, that couldn't have been more clear where to go. It was like, go here. And I thought, hey, it was heavy handed, but it worked really well. Christian.
I think the most satisfying part sonically of that whole experience was the dog whistle. Whenever you would whistle to the dog to go or come back, I think out of everything, that's the most successful and the most satisfying. The whistle didn't seem like it repeated too many times. It seemed very natural, and just the relationship between the player whistle and the dog barking, it was just great, and it felt really. It really solidified that relationship. I don't want to say Zerg because it's not Zerg, but the antagonist's laughter happening throughout, it did add to the tension. The issue is that it felt like it sounded like it was coming much closer than it actually was. And so you have that distance meter up top, how far away that character is. And then you hear laughter as almost as if it's right next to you. So adding, you have very long corridors. The whole level or the whole world is just one long corridor. So having reverb, having making it sound like it's actually, far away, it'll make it seem more ominous and a lot more dangerous, rather than, at least initially, as if you, the character, are laughing. There was a little bit of relationship issues there of what actually is doing that laughter. I'm assuming it's the antagonist. Otherwise, it'd be a little strange to have your protagonist to be laughing while they're trying to escape. But that was a little bit of a clarity issue there. And then the overall volume levels of certain sound effects in the introduction / cutscene to the actual gameplay was a little bit off. It almost initially sounded like it was completely quiet when you were entering that time machine, but then I heard some buzzes and whizzes in there, so be careful with that. Overall, night and day compared to your interim. Great ability to make it happen and make all of your items come together in that world. But that relationship between the protagonist and the dog, I think that was very, very great sound design work there.
Yep, I think overall you guys made some really good choices, and like, it feels like you knew for the most part like the story and what you wanted the guests to experience. Like I said, I think the villain would be the place to focus most, but just good job of being clear about what you were doing and like reflecting that clarity back to the guest. And I think the whole experience worked because of that consistency. It is, I was is a long experience in some sense. Like the number of rooms was kind of surprising. And I think that like, how would you iterate this, and how did like, I think most comment about telling the story through that space would be another place of like thought of like, how do you use that reality of like, I'm doing all these things to not just get the guest engaged and be part of doing things, but also move story forward. And that's sort of advanced BVW in some sense of like that merging of what the guest is doing and how they're taking a role here, as combined with story and progression. But the fact that you sort of have the structure to that and sort of have a window and how that might go is sort of a testament to the pieces you do have in play. So really good work. It was fun to play, and I'm excited that I was able to rewrite history and save our dog. So good job. All right, that is all of round one. So just congratulations everyone on stepping up and making amazing stuff. Just really just amazing work. The shift from interim to final is just really impressive. I think a lot of just great design choices, and especially introspection into what is working, what could work better, and how to sort of shift decisions to be, more in scope, to match better with what the guest is going to do, and all those things. I think just a lot of creativity, a lot of iteration, a lot of just effective decisions on display. And I mean, if we look back, this is 2 weeks ago, we had nothing, right? This is stuff that was created entirely by your team, starting with ideas and thinking and moving to iteration and execution. So just great work going through that process. Yeah, Ray.
Dave, we just had the gameplay progress recorded during the break, and I just wonder, do we still have a chance to have that played in the class too? Present the whole gameplay?
Yeah, do you have, I guess the question is like, what's the best way to bring this up?
I think probably if you can allow me to share my screen and I just play the video on my end. And it's also in our purpose too.
Okay. I think we have a little bit of time. We'll go ahead and do this. I think just as in the future, like we're going to be working on having this ready for when we're doing it at the moment. But yeah, I will go ahead and
thank you very much.
Give you.
I have it up and ready if you want me to just play it.
Okay, Steph. And so for context, Team 9.
Yeah, and I also try to duplicate the reaction of Stephanie when she was playing during the test slot, by memory though.
Getting audio. All right. Thanks, Steph, for playing that. And thank you, Ray, for getting that prepared and being able to show it. It's nice to sort of see the full experience. So I'm glad we were able to get a chance to show that out. All right. With that, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back in about 10 minutes to talk more about assignment 2 and stuff tonight. So yeah, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and end and get the recording going again. And so I wanted to use this time just to sort of talk a little bit more detail about assignment 2. But before I do that, I kind of want to cover some of the stuff what this evening and what today we want you to be thinking about. And to that end, let me bring up some share screen. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up, let me sort of pull these together. Start with team stuff. Okay, so I'm going to share a screen. And we don't need sound or video, so we jump there. So this is Canvas, and this is looking at the assignments. And some things to note are the round 1 final feedback is due tonight. So get that iterated and get the notes captured and the feedback shared. And then we're asking you to do a retrospective. So I'm going to go ahead and click into this assignment. And this is, I think there's been already some communication about scheduling a time with TAs. But this is part of this pause we're putting in between rounds, which is you have your assignment now, but you don't have teams. Teams are going out tomorrow. And what we want you to do is, now that you've finished this, put all this work in to make something pretty awesome, we want you to take a chance to reflect both as a team and as an individual. So part of this is the retrospective. And what we are encouraging you to do is, especially for this first round, is meet with a TA to sort of help guide that process a little bit. But this is mainly about, as a team, talking and sharing thoughts. So it's a 2-part process. Actually, kind of a 3-part, because we've also sent around that survey that we're asking you to sort of fill in, and that's going to help seed some thoughts on this. But the first part is individual preparation, which is really just going in, and it's a simple Google Doc, which just has questions to think about. So before you go into the team retrospective meeting, think through these. I highly encourage you to make a copy of this and then add some notes. So just personally, for the project, what went well, what didn't go so well, what will you take to the next team, what's still a puzzle, like things that you're not too sure you could have done differently, or how you'd approach that. And so just thinking about this before you go into meeting is good meeting prep. So you're not just all trying to think in the moment. It also helps prevent a meeting going in a direction where one person says something and it kind of sets the tone and anchors things, and you only react to that. If you come in individually prepared, then you have things that you may want to bring up that you can reflect back to the team. And so having that preparation is good meeting process as well. So this is the first part. The next part is the actual team retrospective. Not a huge surprise here. These are the same questions in the individual prep, now put in a form where your team is discussing it and someone's taking notes and sort of capturing what you're discussing. And this is important. We want this to be, you to be thoughtful about this. The goal is for it to be constructive. So like that meeting prep particularly will be helpful in, like, how can you bring stuff that you can discuss that will be useful. And so particularly I like the question that we're pushing here, which is, what will you take to your next team? So this is between round 1 and round 2 is a chance to reflect, what did you learn? Are there, practices, like, as a producer doing this, as team meetings, like having a way to check in, how are you managing time zones? And so just practical things. Are there things about communication that you learned, brainstorming? So as a team, getting a chance to discuss that. And then each of you individually can bring that to your next team. So the retrospective, I think, is going to be hopefully meaningful to your process. And hopefully it's a good chance to just talk through like how things went. And like I said, the TAs are going to help coordinate that and just to get the conversation started and going. The main goal is you guys as a team talk and share these thoughts. So that's retrospective. Team stuff, so team notes and team retrospective. The next things are down here. So at the beginning of the project, I had you set goals, and I want to say I was really impressed. I think the goals that you guys put down and the thought you put into it was really, really good. I didn't know what to expect, and you impressed me. So good work. I'm asking you to do 3 things tonight, which I think on paper feels like a lot, but hopefully it all comes together in a way that is more continuous and makes some sense in how it meshes. The first thing is new, and this is the personal and peer evaluation. This is you thinking about your own role in the project, like how you were as a teammate and how your teammates were. And what it really comes down to is this spreadsheet here. And this is a spreadsheet for thinking through everyone on the team and yourself and thinking how did you each sort of perform under these skills. These are the same skills that you looked at for goal setting back at the beginning of the round. And now it's in a form which is more about thinking about the project and teamwork and how each of you sort of did from your own perspective. So like, and one of the things that's known is this is just an individual perspective of how a teammate felt to you. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a copy of this. I'm going to do that right now because I don't want to edit it. I'm going to sort of set it back here. And when you make a copy of it, you get edit permission because it's your own copy. And the things you'll do are these drop downs should have everyone's name in the class. So you'll fill in your team. So you are first in the list and then your teammates. And then you'll fill out this sheet, and all of these are drop downs as well. And it's a rating of 1 to 5, 1 being needs significant improvement, up to 5, which is excellent, keep it up. And so I'm asking you to assess yourself. So reflect within each of these how you think you're doing, and then reflect for your teammates how you felt they did. This is the goal here is to be thoughtful. This is designed to be helpful. So what we're doing with this is, 1, it's the process of going through it. It's of thinking about this stuff and thinking how you embody these skills and how you see it in others. And so that process, hopefully getting you to think about what you might keep doing and what you might shift. And then the other one is this information will be aggregated and anonymized, and we'll be giving you sort of the numbers to help you get some feedback as well of where this is going. So that's what all this builds to. It looks like a lot, but these columns are sort of chunky. But yeah, we want you to go through this and be thoughtful about it. And at the end, there's a place for written feedback. And this is sort of twofold. 1, it's a place to add clarity to some of the numbers you may have assigned. And it's a place to also reflect and possibly talk about things that you appreciate about someone that isn't reflected in the skills. That's worth calling out. The idea of like, you know, I really appreciate you did this. You should keep doing this. And it's a small thing, but it was meaningful. And then things that you might suggest someone stop doing or shift or improve upon. And this, again, is feedback that's going to go to your classmates. It's going to be anonymized. So it's going to be something that gets put together. And at the end of the semester, we're going to gather all this together for each of you individually. And you're going to get sort of a packet, so to speak, of the data. So one thing we do recommend is you keep it anonymous. So don't sign it, don't put your name in here, but use this as a place to try to give someone helpful anonymous feedback to the team. So that's this. The next piece of this flows from this. So this is the intent here is you do this first. You go through this thought process of yourself and your team, and then you're going to do reflection on your goal. So the goal you set before, I'm going to ask you to look back at it and sort of copy it in to this document. So you make a copy of this document, you'll copy the skill into here, down here. And then you will look at the rating you gave yourself for that skill. You just went through that spreadsheet, you gave yourself a rating. So you copy that in here as well. If you created your own skill or you specified differently and you don't have a rating, go ahead and give yourself a rating now. And then there's some questions I'm asking you to reflect on. Just like, why did you assign this rating? And then look at the action plan you put together for this skill and reflect on how that went, specifically around the actions you sort of set and looked at. So that's reflection on the goal. And then the next one sort of naturally follows is setting a new goal for round 2. And that's very similar to round 1. The new difference is you've done the personal and peer evaluation. So I'm going to ask you to reflect on that and use that as a starting point. Was there a skill that you rated, not perfect, and do you want to use that as a starting point? You're welcome to keep a similar skill focus as you did for round 1. I do want you to sort of reflect on it. One of the things is, how has that shifted since round 1? In particular, I imagine a lot of that shift might be in the actions you take and stuff like that. But this is the second piece of that. So all together, what this really is a chance to reflect on how you interacted with the team and how they interacted with you, and then use that to think about that process and set a new goal for the next round. And in theory, this also ties with the retrospective. The team retrospective is a very similar process. It's reflection, looking back and thinking about what went well and what we can learn from that and how to take things to move forward. So all of that is the sort of the stuff for today and tomorrow. This is designed to be, I set the deadline for all this reflection stuff for noon tomorrow, sort of aware of time zones and things like that. I know that Visual Story is sort of like right at the end of that deadline. So, but be thoughtful about your time. The goal is in this time between now finishing the work of round 1 and tomorrow getting the teams to sort of start the new work, is to have a chance to pause and reflect. I think this is a really important part of process, and especially when we're thinking about team and teamwork skills, reflection is hands down one of the best ways to learn about this. So hopefully as you go through this, it does feel helpful and gives you a chance to think about what work are you doing, what skills are you doing that drive this. And the stuff you did in CollabU, I think can feed into this really well as well. Like there's skills that you learned about that you want to bring into your goal setting, into your actions. That'd be a great way to tie things together. All right, that's reflection. That's this evening. That's tomorrow morning, or depending on time zones, tomorrow. And the other thing I wanted to give a chance to go into, well, I guess before I get into the assignment, are there any questions about this and about what we're doing here? Things are good? All right, if you do have questions, feel free to post to Piazza and reach out to the TAs as this moves forward. So the assignment, I do want to give some time to talk about this. It is assignment 2, the feeling of freedom. And we went over this briefly this morning. The big things to note on this are the things we sort of talked through, but we'll sort of take a little more pace. So this is out now. The assignment should be live on Canvas. I'll go ahead and copy the URL into here. So this is assignment 2, the feeling of freedom, naive guest. And interim is due next week. It's a 2-week project. Final is due a week from that. And the platform is not keyboard and mouse on a desktop. It's microphone and or web camera on a similar ETC desktop. And we will be providing technology for this. We are providing, like I said, pitch detection for microphone, and we're providing face tracking. So basically face orientation tracking and feature tracking So you can do stuff like map those features to a character. You can, trigger things. You can try to recognize expressions, but particularly like movement of head. And that is your input. So this world will be very hands-free. And the only moment you're allowed to use keyboard and mouse or other input is at the very beginning, just to control when the world starts. So a pretty big constraint in terms of interactivity and what you get to use. And this will be the reality of this assignment is a lot of constraints. So the constraints are going to be very real for this. Good question on, does technology support Mac? We will, I think so. Like the stuff we're looking at, I think is has good cross-platform support, but we'll look into it. We'll double check. And so for the assignment, the goal here is, as it states, is to create a consistent, highly interactive and engaging experience that lets naive guests feel like they have a lot of freedom in the choices they make. And I think important things to note here are naive guests. So a naive guest for our purposes and in general is a guest who knows nothing about what you're making. So they haven't been to Interim, they haven't been part of your team, learning about your ideas. They haven't been brought into that space. They're not in the class. They're not, brought into the idea of why we're making what we're making and how that works. So they're pretty removed from the development process. They may or may not know much about technology. They may be skilled with video games. They may not be. We're going to ensure that they can use the input devices and are able to sort of have, reasonable functionality when it comes to computers and things like that. But no guarantees on what their background is and what they already know, what games they've played and things like that. So that's your audience. And your job is to create an experience that makes them feel like they had a lot of freedom in the choices they made, all while making an experience that is engaging and fun, that they like. So as it says here, you have to ensure they have a very enjoyable time in the brief experience you provide. Indirect control will be very useful here. I think a good starting point for discussions. And it is not necessary to think of this as like a replayable world. Like the reality of what you'll be presenting in class is mainly one playthrough with the guest. And your goal is to make that a good playthrough. So think hard about, what does one good playthrough look like with your guest? If you're going to use like restarting and failure as a way to iterate, be very intentional and very clear about that. I generally would advise you to not think about failure as in like you restart the whole world, but there might be moments of learning where the guest tries things and you push them and nudge them to try the right thing. So I would not think about failure in the sense of dying and restarting, but possibly failure as in feedback on what is the right thing to do. So think about interest curve, think about meaningful choices, think about meaningful moments, think about surprises, like how to sort of build an exciting experience. And also, as always, no shooting games, no pornography. So those constraints still exist. And the other big part of this is this idea of control, of actually predicting and guiding the experience in a way that the guest isn't aware of, but you can predict and anticipate what they'll do, which is the sealed envelope. So when it gets to class time, you will have submitted as part of your world a PDF with predictions, at least 3 predictions. And once the guest has gone through the world, we will open up that PDF and we will reflect on how successful it was. We'll be basically checking off, did the guest do what you predicted? These predictions are designed to be in order, so order does matter. And the quality of the predictions is meaningful too. So predicting things that are overly simplistic, like the guest will start the world, like may come true, but won't really be rewarded as much as a prediction of like as it says here, the guests will walk down the yellow path. So predicting things that are part of the feeling of freedom is the intent of this assignment. So it's a little bit of like exercising the magical art of indirect control. You have a world where the guest could potentially feels like they could do anything, but you magically predict what they will really do. And that's sort of the spirit of this and what we're hoping you guys push for in your predictions. To make this especially tricky, the constraint that is probably going to be the most difficult to navigate and work with is the constraint of no instructions to the guest. The way this will work in class is we'll get the guests set up and they will be ready to play the world, and we will wish them luck. And the world will start, and then we'll get to watch and see how they do. So there's no instruction verbally from the team to get things going, and then there's no instruction from within the world to tell them what to do, which means no instruction screens, no little pieces of UI hovering over saying do this and do that. It is just a world, and the interfaces that you create via the input systems of microphone and webcam seamlessly working together so the guest does what they need to do. This is going to be hard. This is a difficult constraint, and it means that just because you have an idea of what you'd like to build doesn't mean it'll work. So strategy on how to build and iterate for success is going to be an important part of the discussion. So as it says here, worlds that succeed with the sealed envelope test are what we're looking for. So the predictions and matching that with a world that makes us say, wow, all that stuff, because it's going to mix together. It's going to be hard to balance and figure it out. To that end, the strategies we are going to push you on, a big one is going to be guest testing. So it's a requirement for the assignment is to guest test with at least 4 testers. 4 testers will get you a B. That is expectation. Going above and beyond, going up to 8 testers will get you sort of full credit in the guest testing category in the rubric. And 2 of those testers must be non-students. So I encourage you guys to test early, test often, and find testers who might reflect the naive guest aspect of this. That doesn't mean that all your testers have to be that. Like, you will get a lot of information from guest testers who are your classmates, who are not naive. They will still give you good information. So testing is going to be important. So guest testing is going to be a big thing. We're going to be talking on Thursday about guest testing and how to think more about round 2. But that's going to be a big part of the strategy for this world. The next part is interaction maps. We're asking you to, as part of your design process, map out your strategy for indirect control and guiding the guest. And this is just building a flowchart, basically some design document of your choice that maps out that process. Like, specifically, what in the world you're going to be building will get the guest to do something. So what is the cause of the desired effect? And so this should be a guide both to how you're going to design and build the world, and it should be reflective of the predictions you're going to make. So think hard about the guest experience. It is a really good strategy to be thinking not in terms of world perspective for what you're building, but in terms of guest perspective. So for your interaction map, I highly recommend you take on the perspective of the guest and think through what will they do. So this isn't about what could they do, not all about the possibilities, but what is that linear path the guest will take through your world. There's a technique called a player story, which is sort of telling a first-person narrative of your player going through your experience. And that's a really strong exercise that can tie strongly into the interaction maps, that gets you to think not from a development team perspective, but from a guest perspective. So the guest will click on the screen to start, which is not going to be a prediction, but like is a truth about how they get going. And what will they do? Will they look around? Will they, look at the keyboard? Will they try to click on more things because you prime them to click on things with the start screen? Will they know where to go for this and what to do for that? Will they see things? Will they be confused? All those little pieces are worth reflecting on, and you can get to them best by thinking through from sort of the linear guest first perspective. So that's interaction map. From here, the grades are mixed a little bit. So interim is going to be about the basic things of originality, appeal, and engagement, with feeling of freedom thrown in as like part of what we're going for in the feel of the world. And your interaction map will be part of the grade for interim. For final, it is the originality, appeal, engagement, and feeling of freedom, but also the guest predictions. So how successful were they? How bold were they? And then also guest testing as part of the assignment. So with all that, think back to indirect control. We're gonna be learning more about guest testing, and the TAs are a great resource as well for that. And then there's more stuff about just sort of turning things in, reference documents, and then continued tips about like how to work in teams. But with all that, I guess if there's questions, I'm happy to sort of clarify things right now and get you sort of prepared for assignment 2. So any questions? All make sense? You guys are all ready? All right. Well, if there are no questions, then again, oh, yeah, Ariana?
I have a question, but it's not relevant to the assignment. I have a question about the ZBrush license. So we're gonna have a workshop on Friday, but because I don't have a ETC desktop, I don't have the access to the ZBrush.
We can work through that. I think right now the proposed plan is to use the trial version, but I think we'll have the TAs sync up with you and make sure that's going to work.
Yeah, because I talked to Steve by email, and he said we have to, get our professor approved to be able to do anything else. Yeah.
Okay, we'll work that through with the TAs, and we might need to go through ETC support to make that happen.
Thank you.
And yeah, actually, the question about teams. The teams are going to be released tomorrow. I think the current plan is tomorrow at noon to release teams. Catherine?
Yeah, my question's about the plugins for microphone and webcam. So like, what like specifically can it detect? Like, there's not like speech recognition, is there?
No, and actually it's a good question. So we're going to give you plugins to help use the microphone and the camera better. That doesn't mean that you have to only use those plugins. So we're not going to give you speech recognition. We're giving you a plugin that does pitch detection, but you're welcome to use the microphone as a standard input. So you can get like the strength, the power of the input as a factor as well. If you want to push into speech detection, you can talk to the TAs. They might have some advice for that, but we don't have that technology as an immediate package for you to use. But it is within the constraints of the assignment. It is a valid use of the microphone.
Okay, and for the webcam, it's like the plugin that you're giving us detects like facial features, not like hand movement.
Yeah, let me look this up. One sec. So let me get this shared. It's a landmark detection. And what it's mainly about is it's face detection. Like examples are you can map out the features and potentially get mouth movement and things like that, especially face direction where you're looking and stuff. And that's one of its strengths. Again, if this is sort of like the technology we're giving as a foundation for this, if you want to use the camera for other things, that's doable. But as you are sort of hinting at and pointing out, hands are not really a major part of this, which means thinking about your world, one of the big challenges would probably be movement and how, if you want the world to, you want the guests to be able to move around the world, can you even do that? So I think starting from the constraint will naturally bring you to some assumptions you make about a world and what you want the guests to be able to do that might be really difficult. And so finding an idea that matches the input will be another part of this that's going to require some strategy and thinking. And in fact, one of the things that I recommend is in between now and when the teams go out, thinking about possibilities, doing some, looking for example games example things is a fair approach, and bringing that to your first team. If you, so the questions in the chat, if you want to use other technology, we're going to need to go through the TAs for that. So we are like, part of this is what we're supplying as sort of a class in terms of technology. So we're going to, this is the foundation we're going to start from. If there's other stuff that you're looking at and want to work with, especially now, between now and when the teams come out, email the TAs and we can start that discussion. For the most part, we're going to be like, one of the goals is to give sort of as much equal support, equal access within the class. So we're going to make we're going to discuss it. It's a possibility, but we're probably going to, as a heads up and where we're going to make decisions, we're going to shy away from technology that's paid. And we might look more at, supporting things that are more accessible. We just want to be aware of like where you guys are spending your time and things like that. So it's I think the best thing is just reach out and we'll talk.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, if you do think of questions, obviously post them to Piazza, is the best way to get answers. We'll be watching that. This Thursday, we're going to be talking about guest testing and in some sense the importance of it. I'm going to try to put out some example worlds from round 2 so you can sort of see what teams in the past have done. It's going to be very different. I mean, I think one of the things you're probably already noticing and you're going to notice again is what teams in the past have done is strongly defined by their platform. So you'll be able to see some of the strategies teams took, but they're using possibly VR or Kinect, which results in very different experiences. But I think it will be good just to get a sense of some of the scope and how they sort of approach the idea of freedom and control and things like that. So I'm going to try to get that out so you guys can have those examples. I encourage you guys again to look into audio and sort of webcam games. We're going to try to give some examples as well. And the TAs are also going to do a workshop on the technology to give you some starting point for using this. So with all that, today is a day to think about teamwork and process. So hopefully you guys get to feel that and get a chance to do that. Think a little bit about assignment, but the reality of the assignment is that it mostly starts in earnest tomorrow when the teams go. So that's how I want you guys approaching it as well. And with all of that, great job on round 1, and good luck and getting ready for round 2. And it's going to be an exciting round. And I'm looking forward to all the different ways you guys find to navigate all these conflicting constraints. All right. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Reach out to the TAs with questions and yeah, have good retrospectives with your teams.